Recording. What's up, nation? Welcome back to Shots to the Dome. Very special guest today, Bryce Calvin. And I'm not going to gas you up with this statement, Bryce. I really do believe it. He's one of, if not the best programmers in the online training industry community. He's also from Houston, so he's got a lot of love for us here in Austin, Texas. He went to the Ohio State. And I've noticed, Bryce, that my friend group is becoming increasingly more Ohio-focused, you included.
It's a Columbus-Austin thing, I think.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's the connection.
The last thing I'll say is this is kind of a fun fact for those listening. Bryce is actually Dayla's coach as of a couple weeks ago, and she's been diving into your workouts, which is a nice segue because I know you and I wanted to talk about how there are differences between men and women, but dispelling certain myths around what women can face in the gym, how they can look at progress and reaching their goals. And so I know for us at DLD Nation, Bryce, we'll have women on the team say like, hey, how do I get over gym anxiety? How do I get into heavy lifting? We have some strategies, but I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, so I definitely think that the biggest thing is just ease in. It's whenever you try and take a large leap, it's always going to end up failing, right? If you try and make a transition that's too quick, or if you try and make anything in your life that is going from, one normal to a different normal and trying to make that too big of a broad leap, it's probably not going to work out as well as you think it is. So I generally recommend whenever women go to the gym, if it's anxiety induced or if they're nervous about going to the free weight section, a lot of men can kind of dominate the free weight, even the gyms in general. I think that one big thing to realize and understand is that most men, and especially most people in the gym in general, they are helpful. No one goes into the gym with intentions of being an asshole or intimidating or sweating all over equipment, not wiping it up, or being like that gym bro. No one really goes into the gym with that intention. And I think that you will find if you go to the gym that most people are more helpful than they are hurtful, or that they're going to try and like push you away. Even whenever you hear, the jokes about like New Year's resolutioners and people like, oh shit, oh shit, the gym's gonna be packed. All those people that are in there, for the next 2 weeks before they quit. And it's like, yeah, it's a joke. It's kind of a running joke. But I think at the end of the day, if someone were to come up to any normal gym goer and be like, hey, this is my first day in the gym. I'm a little bit nervous. I really don't know what I'm doing. If you were able to just kind of keep an eye on me and let me know if I'm making myself look like an idiot, I really appreciate it. And honestly, I wish that I had someone do that shit whenever I started training. Like I know that I was in the gym quarter squatting like a motherfucker, and I'm like doing probably the dumbest shit you could ever imagine for the first 2 or 3 years I was in the gym, because I just had no one come up to me and be like, hey man, like, have you ever thought about not doing that? And, obviously phrase it in a way that isn't condescending, but I really do think that whenever you get over that idea of people always looking at you, or everyone is staring at you, everyone's noticing you, or thinking that you're inherently doing something wrong, it's really kind of an easy thing to just kind of focus in and zone in on yourself and understand that after a certain point, you just get comfortable with it. I think if you can kind of start in the machines, I think a lot of women do find a little bit more comfort in the machine area. Typically gyms are broken up into machines versus free weights. I know that a lot of commercial gyms that I've been to are broken up like that. If you just start in the machine area, kind of ease your way over, maybe do like 1 or 2 exercises over in the dumbbells, free weights, Smith machine, racks, whatever it might be, and then just kind of dabble your toes in there and then go back over to the machines, whatever it might be. I think the more comfortability, that you can build, the better off it's going to be long-term. And you're going to realize that most people are helpful.
Yeah. You bring up a good point in that regard, Bryce. I forgot about that too. The 5 years that Dayla and I, almost 5 years that we've been lifting together, like we've done workouts together for sure. Like we've gone in and out of, go in, give each other a hug, like see you in 2 hours, do our own thing, to like eventually evolving to, hey, you're doing a shoulder day. Like, let me help you out. Like we'll do that together. Yeah. I've only had one instance over like almost 5 years of somebody being a douche and like that I had to go talk to, being around Dayla, but everybody else has been so helpful. I know when I go into the gym, probably like you being an experienced lifter, you see people who look new, like we can tell.
Yeah, you can tell.
Right. I always try to make a point of being really nice to those folks and kind of helping them along. Also, like you said, going from machines to free weights and then having a coach. And like, yes, we're going to talk about coaching, but having somebody to show you, because I know in your programming, like you've been programming not only for Dayla, but our friends Chad and Caitlin. And I dove in, got my toes wet with a few Bryce Calvin workouts, and Chad would have those links to videos for new exercises. So if you have a coach, then you can not only get your toes dipped in, but it's like, oh, if I have any questions, like I can reach out, because it may be more intimidating to look around and you find like the gym bro in the full fucking cutoff, like from shoulder to the bottom of the waist. And you're like, I don't know if I could talk to that person.
Yeah, exactly. And I think more on the female specific side, it helps to train with friends and in groups. Like if you can have a gym partner that can go with you, keep you accountable, whether it's one or two friends that you might go with, I think that helps overcome a lot of that anxiety, because it's not, oh, I'm here by myself.
Right.
Everyone's looking at me. All the eyes are on me. It's like, no, now I can have a conversation with my friends in between my sets. If I look stupid, like, hey, tell me I look stupid doing this, or, it just takes the general pressure off of you to perform by yourself. And I think that a lot of times whenever you're getting into the gym, or, if you're getting into more lifting and heavier resistance training, it feels like you can kind of be on an island by yourself. You feel a little bit isolated, especially as you're easing into different things and new things. But if you can go there with friends or a training partner or a group of friends, it kind of takes that pressure off of you. And then it's more of a social time. It can be a fun time. And honestly, like whenever I used to train as, well, I was gonna say as a teenager, but like in college, some of the best lifting experiences I ever had were with, 2 to 3 friends, where we'd all meet up at the gym at the same time, all gonna do the same workout, push each other, or you just build like a good core group of people that at the gym, and you introduce yourself to them. You say, hey, I'm Bryce. I'm a little bit new here. This is my first day in the gym, or I just moved into town, whatever it might be. Can you help me? Can you spot me? Can you tell me if I'm doing this right? Whatever it might be. I think that the biggest thing being in the gym is just understanding that the more approachable that you are to other people, like the more that you go out of your way to just be like, hey, like, this is who I am. Nice to meet you. I understand that we're not going to be, assholes to each other. This is going to be like a nice cordial relationship. Every time we see each other in the gym, we're going to smile, we're going to wave, we can help each other out. And I think, especially as guys, whenever we go into the gym, we go into a new gym, we tend to size each other up instantly. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't like that guy. Like immediately you just like look at people like, I don't like that guy. And then after like 3 to 4 weeks of looking at that person, be like, I don't fucking like that guy. You finally meet him, you're like, oh man, that guy's really nice. Shit.
Yeah.
Like I didn't like him for like 3 weeks for no reason. Now he's really nice. Now we're gonna be friends. We're gonna train like next Tuesday together. Shit like that, But I think at least with most women are a little bit more supportive in general of each other. I think they all kind of understand that that whenever they go to the gym, they have their goals in mind. They're like, all right, I'm going to train. I'm going to get my workout done. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z exercise. It's the order I'm going to do it. I'm going to try and get it done in, an hour. And I think that the big anxiety around a lot of that stuff is just feeling like they're doing something wrong, or feeling like they're going to look dumb or look out of place. And whenever you realize that most people just don't care, they don't care. They're not judging you. And also they're generally not going to notice. Most people are like us. We're focused on ourselves and we're focused on our own workout. If we're looking around, we're typically just spaced out.
Yeah.
No one's really staring at other people. And if they are, then they're probably pretty fucking weird anyway. So
yeah, no, you make some great points, Bryce. I love how you said training partners and training buddies are a great way to ease into the gym, even just to train in general. Like I went up to train at the gym that Chad and Caitlin been going to, and like Caitlin has her assistant coach Sarah in town. Dayla went up to hit a leg day, like one of y'all's with Caitlin and Sarah. And I was supposed to do legs, but Chad's there doing like chest or upper body.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, like I didn't bring any like my straps, like none of that. But I was like, I want to kick it with my friend and like work out,
exactly.
have fun, enjoy it way more. Also, you touched on people kind of not giving a shit about what others are doing. There's a study, stop me if you've heard this, but I want to share this for like our listeners.
Yeah.
They did a study, not on the study was done in the gym, but it wasn't about the gym specifically. And you can use this with your clients too. but it was to point out how myopic we are, basically how in our heads we all are and how little
Yeah.
we care about other people. So they had guys go around and do a workout for an hour, like 60 minutes, wearing these huge oversized like Care Bear t-shirts and like, you know, the like weirdest stuff you can imagine. They were like, go do a workout. And then they come back and they're like, how many people in the gym percentage wise do you think noticed you? And they're like, oh my God, like 80 to 90%, like maybe everybody, like I look so stupid. The actual numbers when they pulled the people in the gym at the same time, 10%.
Yeah. And
Everybody's like, I don't know that guy. Who are you talking about?
and that really is how it is. You know, I think that for the majority of people, if you're just not peacocking, if you are just an average, if you're just an average person going to the gym, wearing normal things, you got your headphones in, you know, you go do your squats, you go do your leg presses, your lunges, you leave, no one will generally notice you. You know what I mean? And typically whenever you get noticed, it's for good things. Like if you're a very attractive female, you might get noticed. You know, if you're a guy who's squatting 500 pounds for reps, you're probably going to get noticed. You know, it's things like that where it's not people like, oh, look how fucking stupid they look. It's generally good things, you know? And at least in my experience, like I typically don't notice negative things whenever I'm in the gym, unless someone is just doing something so horrifically wrong where I'm like, man, they might get hurt. But then you kind of take it upon yourself like, hey, I'm going to approach this person in the nicest way possible. And this is actually something that over the course of time I've gotten better about, because in the past I was always like, I'm not going to be that person that says anything. I'm not going to be the person that goes up to them and is like, hey, you know, have you ever thought about doing it this way instead of that way? But I've gotten better about it as I've gotten older and as I've done it a couple of times, where it's you approach them in the nicest way possible. You don't say it in an aggressive tone. You don't condescend. Like you're just trying to say it from a learning and educational perspective. It's like, hey, you know, I noticed that, you know, whenever you got a little bit closer towards your end point of that set, your form started breaking down a little bit. Like, have you ever, you know, considered doing this instead of that? And I've had a lot of experience doing it myself. Whenever my form breaks down, I've,
Right.
you know, experienced, you know, it's more relatable. You can make it, it always helps. But for females, I think that females tend to be a lot more receptive to constructive criticism than men are.
Yeah, because guys have the ego. It's like, whatever, bro.
Yes.
Like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, for sure. So like, again, I maybe it's just because I work with so many females. I kind of understand how to talk to women at this point, where it's like I don't come off as being a dick or trying to say like I'm right, you're wrong. It's more of like a hey, you know, I noticed that this could be a little bit better, and stop me if you don't want to listen to me. But you know, I do this for a living, and I coach a decent amount of people, and you know, if you did this, you might get a little bit more out of this exercise and actually lower your injury risk. And I think that a lot of people appreciate that. And I think that if more people did that, that might actually lessen the general anxiety that you have associated with going to the gym, where it's just people aren't trying to be assholes most of the time. 99% of the time, people aren't trying to be assholes. But there's still always just going to be that anxiety and that nervousness associated with going to a place where you think everybody is fit and perfect and squatting 500 pounds, and every dude is just like walking around like a needle poking out of his butt, and like you know what I mean? It's just like I think a lot of people associate like the gym with those stereotypes before they go, and they're like, wow, it's really not like that at all. There's a lot of just normal looking people here.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I'm originally from Los Angeles and used to go train at the Mecca out there. You've been out there, right?
I haven't. I have
No
not.
way.
I have not.
So it definitely lives up to the hype. It's great, but it was like my local gym. I would literally walk there. I was like 3 or 4 blocks away before going to work. And people would ask me like, how do you train there? And I'm like, what do you mean? And they would say, well, I hear The Rock trains there, or, you know, Mike O'Hearn trains there, or like, you know, our friends, Justin Lovato, like big people. And I'm like, yeah, but it's a huge gym. It's in a big city. So there's also people who are just trying to stay fit. And yes, you turn the corner sometimes and there's a comic book character staring back at you, like a superhero staring back at you, but they're always the nicest people, like you said.
Exactly.
I also like how you said, Bryce, that in the gym, because you're kind of like enlightening me too to things that I do just kind of unconsciously now, but we all notice people who are in the gym a lot. Like you see the same people, like most of us are going at the same time. You see the same people. And so eventually you just, you know, it's the 8th, 9th time you see them, you give them a little like head nod, or you'd be like, hey, what's up? You know, and guys, you just like give a quick fist pump. And then it eventually snowballs into like, oh, I see you in the gym all the time. What's your name? Same thing with women, you know, guys, if you're not trying to hit on chicks and you just see them over and over and over again, then you say, hey, what's up? Like, hey, you've been getting after it when I see you in here, like mad props, that sort of thing. I know you also train a lot of women, obviously, with like Dayla and Caitlin on your roster and many more. Um, and for those who we're working on video here at Shots to Dome, so this will be like all audio right now, but like Bryce is huge. Like he walks in the door, and I say this with love. You're like Wolverine from the, or not Wolverine, Sabretooth from the old X-Men movies. Like huge amount of
I'll
man.
take it.
Yeah. So how do you help the ladies on your team dispel the myth that they fucking touch a weight and then poof, they look like you?
So I think a lot of it comes down to just experience. And a lot of times I also like to relate things to women that already exist, right? So for me, I can't be like, don't lift heavy because, I lift heavy and I look like me, or, Dayla does this or Caitlin does that and they look the way they do. But it's like, it doesn't really resonate that well. I think for the majority of women, especially whenever you get beginners, I think that's typically whenever you have this myth that's present is with beginners, because once you get into the intermediate advanced stage, they've already been lifting long enough. They don't really have that in mind anymore. They're like, okay, I've been lifting for long enough and I don't look like that. So I don't really have to worry about that anymore. I probably have to worry about lifting harder so I can continue to gain muscle and make progress. But for a lot of the new clients and the beginners that I've worked with in the past, it really is kind of, it's an association thing. So if you can say, hey, what is your goal body type? And they're like, oh, I want to look like, X actress. It's like, okay, cool. So let's go ahead and Google whatever this actress's, workout routine
Their training
is,
program.
their training program. And a lot of times if you Google that, it's going to be bullshit. But a lot of times in there's going to be some free weight exercises. There's going to be like, dumbbell walking lunges. There's going to be RDLs. There's going to be pull-ups. There's going to be different types of things like that. And I'm like, okay, so look, you see these free weight exercises in here, and they're going heavy, and they're not doing just body weight movements. They're not doing just calisthenics. They're not doing, just box jumps and burpees and mile long runs. They're lifting, they're doing resistance training. Like, they have a body type that you said that you would enjoy. And what makes you think necessarily that just because they're doing, a little bit of this, that if they did a little bit more, they would all of a sudden look like what you said, like me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not how this works. I promise.
I wish it did. I wish I could go touch a weight and look like you.
But the thing is, though, is I think that in my experience too, I've been getting that question and that myth presented to me so much less frequently in the past couple of years than it was before. And I think a lot of that is probably due to just so much better information being out there now.
Whether it's Instagram too, like we get access to.
I think Instagram is probably one of the best ways, just because it's so accessible. Like, you can just scroll through your timeline and you see, okay, oh man, this girl has an awesome body. I wonder what she does. You go to their profile, guaranteed they're going to have videos of them lifting, especially if they're in the fitness space. It's like, oh wow, they're doing leg press with 400 pounds. They're doing overhead press with 95 pounds. They're doing 10 body weight pull-ups, and they look like that. They don't look like a female bodybuilder. Like, whoa, that's shocking. But a lot of it is just stumbling upon these things for females. And the majority of the women that I have coming to me, they're like, no, I want to be fucking strong. I want to deadlift 300 pounds. I want to squat 300 pounds. I want to do 20 body weight pull-ups. I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z things. And I think that the majority of the time, whenever I have anybody that comes to me or anybody that asks me that question, that is, what if I lift? Will I get big? Or will I look like a man? Yeah, whatever. It typically is women from the older generation.
Gotcha.
That's what it has been in my experience. Like, my mom would think something like that, and that's something that like my aunts possibly would think, or someone that is, a little bit older in age. And maybe that's just my experience. And maybe that's just something that is affected by the clientele that I work with now, because it's mostly intermediate to advanced. But yeah, luckily I'm starting to see that myth kind of die.
That's cool. Yeah, because I agree with you. It is a little bit older. Like my mom, when she sees even me on a video I post of like a deadlift, she'll text me and be like, are you sure I did it? And I'm like, Mom, it's not like I just threw that weight on. Like, I'm going up incrementally. Like, I'm confident I'm going to be able to get that. But it is an old school mentality. I think it's kind of cool that you aren't really seeing that anymore.
Yeah, and that, I mean, again, like I said, it might just be the clientele that I work with now, where the majority of the women that reach out to me are going to be competitors, or they're going to be more intermediate advanced. But that is really not something I tend to deal with much anymore. But for the women that actually do focus more on that, and they're actually concerned about that, I would I would recommend doing something like a body weight program just to ease into it. So it's like, okay, if you take, and the quarantine actually was a very good time to do
For
this.
sure.
But if you take, 4 to 6 weeks of doing nothing but body weight exercises, whether it's, push-ups, whether it's inverted rows, walking lunges, things like that, like planks, in any kind of variation that you're doing like that, and understand, okay, I can do 10 push-ups right now. Even though it's a body weight exercise, it's still your 10 rep max, which is a high intensity. So you can equate that to doing a barbell bench press with your 10 rep max.
Hmm.
For you, I'm not sure what that would be. For me, that's a substantial amount of weight. And whenever we get down to like the muscular level, a female's pecs and shoulders and triceps don't know what they're actually pushing against. All they know is the mechanical tension that the muscle fiber is feeling. So a 10 rep max push up for a smaller female might feel like a 400-pound bench press for me.
Hmm.
So at the end of the day, it's like, whenever you can kind of equate those different things, and you're like, wow, I'm doing sets of 5 on pull-ups. That's a 5 rep max. That's a very high intensity. Whether it's a body weight movement or calisthenic movement or not, that could be equated to doing, a 5 rep max bent over barbell row, which is a very, very high intensity movement. So whenever you kind of can frame shift it like that, I think it makes a little bit more sense. But again, it's one of those things where at a muscular level, none of this shit matters.
Hmm.
None of it matters. Like, load on the barbell doesn't matter. The movement pattern doesn't really matter that much. Whenever you're getting down to that level, a lot of these things just kind of iron themselves out. And I think I mean, obviously that's a harder conversation to have with someone who's a beginner or a newbie, but for people that understand it, it just makes a lot more sense where you're like, look, like, these things really don't even matter at the end of the day. If you're doing a walking lunge with your body weight, and that body weight is hard for 10 reps, that's awesome. You can make great progress doing just body weight lunges. And at a certain point, whenever you can do body weight for 20 reps, hold on to some 15-pound dumbbells. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm doing a resistance training movement. I'm using load. But all you're doing is progressing from body weight. And if you can
Yeah.
kind of actually regress everything down to that basic model where, like, at the end of the day, everything that you do in the gym can just be a progressed version of body weight movements. Like, if you do a handstand push-up, that's an overhead press. If you do a push-up, that's a bench press. If you do an inverted row, that's a barbell bent over row. A pull-up, that's a pull down. All those different things. Even a body weight squat is just the regressed version of a barbell squat at the end of the day. And the only reason we add load is because a body weight squat is too easy.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, Bryce, because we've talked to some of our clients about, like you said, the muscle doesn't know. It doesn't know if you're in the gym. It doesn't know if you're working with bands. It doesn't know if you're doing body weight stuff. Like, we even wrote, and you brought up a great point during quarantine. We even wrote backpack workouts because it
That's
was like,
exactly what I was doing too. Yeah.
dude,
So
it's
I was
great
doing
because
that too.
you can throw in a ton of books, like other
Yeah.
heavy objects that you have, and you can get a lot done. And people who were in DLD Nation who went through quarantine, had their gyms closed, then it opened back up, they didn't really lose any strength. Like, yeah, for sure
Yep.
they were sore the first couple of days, but a lot of them are reporting, hey, I'm the same weight at this, or like only had to go 5 pounds in this, down 5 pounds. Because we all get in our heads a little bit too much. Like, I know I still do. If I take a week off or something, it's like, oh, I'm going to lose all my gains, when, one, that's not the truth. And then two, like you said, Bryce, um, people need to realize that it's like the progression. And that's what you preach with your programming. Like, I've seen it, and I've seen how you work your way up, because, you and I probably grew up playing sports, and we started with push-ups and that whole thing. And it was
Right.
like, oh, you're getting good at this. Like, all right, let's get you into the weight room. Like, you can go from body weight squats to this, or like, oh, you're doing like 15 pull-ups, pretty easy. Okay, now let's start to add weight, do something different.
Yeah, exactly. And like, for me, it, like, doing a body weight pull up for me is a hard movement because
Oh
I
my
have
God.
I have so much body weight,
How much do you
but
weigh, just for people listening?
like 250, about
Yeah.
250, 245, 250. But for a guy who's 150 pounds, a body weight pull up might be nothing. So then they might be able to do that for 25, 30 reps. So then that's whenever you start adding load. If we're talking about someone who weighs 400 pounds, for them doing a Bulgarian split squat, that's going to be a very high intensity movement. That's an extremely high load just from their body weight. Granted, I wouldn't have someone do a Bulgarian split squat if they weighed 400 pounds. So just the frame there. But for myself, I might need to use 200 plus pounds of extra load to equate, that difference in body weight. So for me, I have the strength to do that, even though I don't have the body weight to provide that. So like you said, at the end of the day, everything we do in the gym is just an extrapolation of what we can do with our body weight. And the only reason we really need to do that, and the reason we need to go to the gym, is because we've gotten stronger, or our body weight has gotten so low to where we're actually capable of doing more than, 15 to 20 reps as a max for that movement pattern. And like, shit, even guys that go to prison, those guys can stay in great shape, but typically they're just offsetting the absolute load and intensity with just more volume. So they're just doing, thousands of reps of push-ups and pull-ups a day, but they can still stay in phenomenal shape just doing body weight exercises. But if they were able to use a bench press, or a weighted pull-up, a chain pull-up belt to add weights to pull-ups, they would be able to do much less volume and just use the extra load to make up that. So yeah, that's kind of where that myth can be dispelled, is that if we were all capable of continuously making progress forever just doing body weight stuff, I wouldn't argue that. I wouldn't argue, that we need to go to the gym, or that we need to continuously add weight to the bar and try and get stronger over time. But at the end of the day, like, a body weight squat can only take you so far.
Mm-hmm.
And it's much more useful and time efficient to squat with a barbell to get from point A to point B than it is to do, 500 body weight squats to make up that ground.
Yeah, you're going to get more bang for your buck, so to speak. I like how you brought up prison workouts as well. I know you and I can joke about, like, Gucci Mane. I don't know if when he went into prison versus when he came out, it's like wholly different. But it segues nicely into something I wanted to touch on, which you've talked about previously, which is optimality versus enjoyment. And I know you've spoken previously about mainly women, I guess on average feel like they need to have this exhausted mentality leaving the gym versus doing something that's more optimal towards their goals. So like you were saying, Bryce, women may, for whatever reason, and hopefully it's changing with new generations, feel like they need to do 200 lunges followed by a run, followed by band work, followed by this, versus, hey, you just do like a heavy squat, 8 to 12 reps. So I'd love for you to go into that optimality versus enjoyment piece.
Yeah. So this is actually something I continuously struggle with. So where I don't necessarily struggle with the myth of touch a weight, you're going to look like, the Hulk, I do struggle with actually reining women in, because like I said, the clientele that I work with is that intermediate to advanced. And typically those clients aren't the ones that you have to convince to go to the gym. They're the ones that you have to convince to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be just as much of a problem. So whenever you have clients that like being in the gym for 3 hours, they like doing 15 exercises, 5 sets of everything whenever they're in the gym, and you're just like, look, you're doing way too much. And I'll get clients that come to me, they send me their initial programs that they're doing before I get to work with them. And I'll look it over and I'm like, do you ever rest? Like, do you have a rest day planned in here? And they're like, oh no, I typically don't rest. And I'm like, so you work out every day for 2.5, 3 hours a day, and you don't take any rest days, and you think that you're going to make progress. And they're like, oh yeah, like I work really hard. I'm like, yes, okay. So whenever you can frame it in a way to, like, obviously not sound condescending, but the best way that I've ever heard it said is, whenever you're in the gym, you're digging a hole. Whenever you're outside of the gym, you're sleeping, you're eating, you're filling the hole back up. And what you don't want to do is, you don't want to leave anything unfilled. You want to at least get it back to ground level. But in a perfect world, you start stacking dirt on top of that hole to where you can grow. You don't want to just continuously dig the hole, and every time you try and fill it, you're leaving gaps. Because that's how you regress, because you're just doing too much, you're not recovering. And women will get into these cycles where they think more is better. I think men can get there too, but especially women can be way worse about it. And I've noticed this a lot with the competitors that I work with, where it feels like, whenever you talk to them, if you tell them to do less, it's almost like an insult. You're like, it's almost like you're attacking them personally. Like you don't think that they're capable of working that hard, or you don't think that you don't believe in them, and you're like, I can do more. And it's like, no, you don't need to do more. You need to do less. Like less
Yeah.
is more. And again, with like the optimality versus enjoyment, they might enjoy being in the gym for that long, but it's not close to optimal. It's not close to optimal to never rest.
Mhm.
So in my experience as a coach, you have to play. It's like a give and take game. You have to kind of play tug and war with them. Like sometimes you pull it more to your side, sometimes you give them a little bit more. But if you can toe that line between giving them just enough enjoyment to keep them more on the optimal side of the spectrum, then you're doing a good job as a coach, because you're going to keep them happy. They're going to continue to make progress, but they're also not going to just get stagnant and stale with the program to the point where they're like, I don't want to do this shit anymore. I'm just going to do my own thing. And that's whenever you start running into problems, whenever you write the perfect program and it's all built out and it's amazing and it's the progression model is perfect, and you're like, I had this planned out for the next 16 weeks, 20 weeks, year, whatever. And after 3 weeks, your client's like, oh yeah, I just didn't do any of that. Sorry. Like I
Yeah.
was bored. I didn't want to do that.
It's the worst.
Yeah. So that's whenever you get to that point where you kind of understand what your client wants. And, if your client enjoys a lot of exercise variation, they enjoy moving, they enjoy sweating, that's fine. You can give them a little bit of that, but not at the sake of continuing to progress and make and make that long-term progress. So what I've done is I've basically like built into the programming that I have, like core movements. I'm like, all right, we're going to move and progress these the best that we can over the course of this training cycle, however long that's going to be. And within that, like outside of those movements, we can kind of have a little bit more fun. We can do movement variations that you enjoy. We can do supersets. We can kind of, if you want to do like plyometrics, you can do that stuff. It's more about just like finding a common ground with them to something that like they're going to adhere to long term. Because if they're not adherent, then it doesn't matter what you're doing as a coach, because
Right.
they're just not going to do it anyway. Because and I found this in my own training as well, where if I'm just extremely bored, or if something is bothering me, like if something is taking too long, I'm just like, I'm not going to do it. It's just, that's just how I am. I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to go do something else that's going to take me less time, and I'm going to be able to knock this workout out quicker. I'm going to get, at least 90% of the bang for my buck that I was going to with this program, but it just won't be nearly as like time effective. But with women, I think that like the big point is meeting them halfway. You can't be such a stickler to optimality or the textbook or the research where you're like, you can't modify and adjust based on what your client actually is giving you feedback wise. But you also can't go so far to that client where you're just a yes man. You're like, oh, you enjoy doing this, so we're just going to do that. Don't worry about, lifting heavy, or don't worry about squatting or leg pressing or overhead pressing or doing, X, Y, and Z movement. If you don't want to do it, we don't have to do it. It's like, okay, how about you do this one movement for me, and then outside of that, we can do a couple of things that you enjoy doing as well. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's very much give and take as a coach.
Yeah, 100%. It's like in film and TV, a lot of times actors will like do one for you, like the studio, and then like do one for them, or directors.
Yeah.
Trying to think of a good one, but a lot of big name directors will do like one for the studio to make a shit ton of money, and then they'll go do one for themselves just to keep both
Right.
sides happy. Would you say that boredom in training is okay and or helpful, not only from a like programming standpoint and the
Yeah.
exercises that they're doing, but then like being in the gym and taking rest breaks?
Oh, for sure. So I think that the longer that you train, the more you realize that you're almost always just going to be bored. Like, for me,
I'm so happy you touched on this, by the way. I'm so
I
happy you
mean,
said that.
for me, I've been training for like 10 years, seriously. So whenever I get excited to be in the gym, I'm like, what is happening? Like, why am I so excited to be here? Like,
You're with a friend. You're with the
yeah,
homies.
I'm like, I should not feel excited. Like whenever gyms opened back up after the lockdown, I was excited. But at least I
Mhm.
knew why I was excited. It wasn't like, oh yeah, the random training session. I'm so pumped to go to the gym. After a while, it's more of just like, okay, it's a job. I've got to do it. I know what I have to do. I'm gonna go do it. I'm looking at my program. Got X, Y, and Z exercise. Got to progress on it from last week. Know that that's what I have to do. And a lot of times it is really boring, and like progression is boring, and making compromises to your daily schedule is not always going to be a fun thing to do. Sometimes you're going to have to take an hour or an hour and a half out of your day that is might be better served doing something else, working or making money or
Yeah,
relaxing.
taking care of the kids, whatever it is.
Exactly. And I think, I mean, that's what the gym is. So like whenever you make that investment in yourself and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. This is going to be something I want to do for me. You just have to understand that it's going to come to a certain point where you don't love it anymore. And you don't have to. You don't have to, but you understand that it's part of your long-term goal. Just like people don't like dieting. No one likes being hungry, but you understand that you have to do that at a certain point to get to your goal. And same thing with training, where I understand that people like to use the gym as like a safe haven. It's a stress reliever. It's a place where they can go and relax. But if you also want to make progress long term, there has to be a give and a take. So if you are, like you said, if you're bored with the program, but that program has given you really solid results, you can continue with the program and maybe just make slight modifications to it, where it's like, okay, here's the general structure of the program. We're going to continue rolling with that structure. Maybe we're just going to sub out some exercises here and there for some new ones just to keep it from being stale. But you can continue rolling with the same ideas for a long time as long as you're making progress. Whenever you start to see that plateau happen, maybe that's whenever you decide to switch things up a little bit more drastically, I should say. But then like getting into like the rest periods part where it's like trying to get women to slow down is definitely a huge issue. And that's something I've also dealt with in the past, where a lot of women that I work with just like that feeling of getting their heart rate up. They like the feeling of moving. They're obsessed with like looking at their Apple Watch, seeing how many calories they burn, what their heart rate is. And I get it, I get it. And especially who I work with, a lot of them are, they can be like scale obsessed. They can be body weight obsessed. They're generally fanatical food trackers because they're competitors. They have to be on top of all that shit.
For sure.
But you have to understand like what the gym actually is for. The gym isn't for burning calories for the most part, right? If you want to burn calories, you can go do like, a circuit workout. You can go do sprints on the treadmill. You can go do, Airdyne sprints. You can do stuff like that. You can do a fucking Zumba class, whatever. That stuff burns calories. Generally, what doesn't burn calories is resistance training, or at least not to the extent that most people think it does. So whenever you can understand that resistance training is building muscle, it's building strength, and a lot of those capabilities and those components of fitness, they require rest. Because if you don't rest, you're not going to actually recover to your baseline for your next set, and it's going to impair what you're able to do long term. So if you can squat 100 pounds for 10 reps, and if you take 2 minutes in between your sets, you're able to squat 100 pounds for 10 reps again. And let's say you take another 2 minutes, you're able to squat it for 9 reps, something like that. But if you're taking 30 seconds rest and you go 10 reps and you go 6 reps and you go 5 reps, that's not optimal. In no way is that optimal for long-term progress. Whenever you could have just taken a little bit more rest time and gotten like much higher volume, reduce your risk of injury long-term, and also ensure that, you're able to progress week to week with the load and also the reps. It really, the trade-off, it's not a negotiable thing for me. For me, like that's one thing that I try to instill in my clients, like, we are going to train hard and we're going to take our time unless I stipulate otherwise. If I give you a superset, that superset is there for a reason, but it's not going to be squat supersetted with deadlifts. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like we're not gonna create risk of injury by just for the sake of moving faster. There's no point in that. And if you want to do that stuff, you can go do CrossFit. Like if you just want to move and throw caution to the wind, there are places for you to do that. But that's not going to be with me. That's not going to be with you. That's not going to be with like any legitimate coaches. And again, it's one of those things where it's typically whenever you get a protocol from a coach, you're going to get a training program, you're going to get a nutrition protocol. You're also going to get cardio protocol. That's why cardio and resistance training are separate.
Yeah.
Because they're two separate qualities. Whenever you're doing cardio for the purpose of burning fat or burning calories, that's more of a nutrition thing. So cardio goes more along with diet than it does with resistance training, because those two things are calorie manipulations. You're controlling how many calories you're bringing in and expending, through nutrition, through cardio. What you're controlling through resistance training is getting stronger and actually building the muscle.
Yeah, I really am grateful that you brought up CrossFit, Bryce, because I was actually working with two of the guys on my roster who came from a CrossFit background and they're now doing
Yeah.
more bodybuilding. And the challenges they face are the rest periods. They were like, I feel like I either need no rest, I need to just dive back in, or my rest time is like 3 to 5 minutes. It's like between doing the WOD or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'll often ask them, well, how did that, what were your results? Like, did that get you the goal that you wanted? And then when they are admittedly like, no, then it's like, okay, well, then let's try this way to get the strength that you're looking for and the look that you're looking for. And I was even doing a check-in today from one of my guys, and he was like, you're so right. Like, I'm still getting out of that mode, but he was like, my strength is going way up. Like, I don't feel as fatigued. I don't feel as wrecked. Also, you kind of touched on this, Bryce, but the goal being strength. And I think for so many women, it's like you said, they go in with, I want to look like this celebrity or fitspo or actress, when eventually through their fitness journey, all of a sudden it clicks and they're like, oh, I want to be strong. Like, I like
Yeah.
going in and being able to
Yeah.
lift this, or it's helped me out, even the simple stuff. Like for me too, like lifting groceries, like there's a couple grocery stores near us. And so when Dayla and I go and we like fuck up and get too many bags, I'm like, I'm going to be able to carry this home. Like, it's no big deal. She's going to be able to carry it home. It's no big deal. So do you find that too, that the women on your team, all of a sudden that clicks and they're like, oh, I want to be strong, and that will bring the look I'm looking for?
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times, especially with working with competitors, whether they're, like bikini girls or figure girls or physique, whatever it might be. A lot of times whenever they shift into their off season periods, almost the first email I always get is, let's get fucking strong. Almost every single time, that's the first email I get. And obviously that comes with experience and training history and things like that. But that is a turning point in someone's lifting career to me, whenever they go from being so focused on a visual appearance versus, I kind of just want to get strong now. Or I want to have like weights or load or exercise related goals now. So it's like, okay, I really enjoy like that woman's back or how her back looks in that dress, to, man, I really want to be able to do a bodyweight pull up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Pull-ups are big.
and then, but whenever they can shift that frame of reference to what they want the end goal to be versus, okay, now I want to get strong. It's like, okay, that's the process. Like, that's the process oriented to where you're going to get to the goal. Because if you're so focused on the long-term goal, like that final look, then it's hard to get there for a lot of women, especially women, I think. But whenever they can kind of shift it to, man, like that girl, her butt looks so good, man. Like, I wish my butt looked like that, to, oh man, like I want to be able to squat my body weight for 10 reps. Like, yeah, that's exactly what it needs to be, because whenever you can set those goals, then you're like, that's how you get the goal body. That's how you get the aesthetic part that's going to come later. But if you get so hung up on the physical appearance versus like the actual process that's going to get you there, it just becomes like a revolving door of, I'm going to stick on, this machine. I'm going to do 30 reps here. I'm going to take 30 seconds rest here. I'm going to try and get my heart rate up. I'm going to try and sweat. I'm going to leave the gym exhausted, no rest days, all these things. And it's like, okay, well, you can do that, or you can squat, you can deadlift, you can lunge, you can leg press, and you can be out of the gym in 60 minutes and have, a much more effective workout. And also, you're going to take tomorrow completely off from the gym. You're not going to do cardio either. And like all those things, you're going to make sure that you're rested. You're going to eat all that stuff. And I think a lot of times women, like whenever they first start their fitness journey, they have this misconception of what it takes to get to certain goal physiques. And a lot of times I find people start in the same positions. They start with that cardio, the body weight exercises, the machine-based movements. A lot of women start with like, I'm failing to remember the actual names of the programs, but it's more of like the circuit-based at-home workout type of things, or band workouts where it's highly calorically burning. They're going to move around a lot, but they're not going to build much muscle. And a lot of the physiques that they're running into, especially on Instagram, are muscular physiques. They're muscular women. And what you see a lot of the times too is these, like you said, these Fitspo women will post their workouts, and it's like, band lateral walks, band glute bridges, like step ups, like box jumps, flutter kicks, like all these like weird kind of nondescript workouts that aren't really involved in any kind of progression scheme. So what they get is they influence people to think that that's how they got their body. It's like, no, that's not how they got. That's the content they're posting.
Right. Yeah, because it's more digestible. It's like easier for women to be like, oh, I can do the banded stuff. I can do some step ups. And they aren't showing like heavy deadlifts. They're not showing heavy leg press.
Exactly. And what it is too is it's much more captivating to the audience. So what's really boring is if your favorite Fitspo was to be on Instagram and be like, hey guys, this week I squatted 200 pounds for 6 reps. And the next week they're like, hey guys, this week I squatted 205 pounds for 6 reps. And then in 8 weeks they're like, hey guys, I squatted 230 pounds for 6 reps. And it's like, yeah, we get it. You're squatting.
Yeah.
Like, but that's what it is. Like that's basically what resistance training and lifting is. But no one wants to scroll past their timeline and see like the same workout every week, every day. Like it's boring. So at a certain point, these influencers and people that post a lot of this content, they're like, hey, I can't just keep posting the same workouts that I'm doing. Or they get to a point where they've already built that base and like, I can kind of just maintain my body and do these more random workouts essentially, right? But most people get to that point and that level by sticking to some kind of program for an extended period of time and focusing on getting stronger and focusing on these smaller goals, whether it's, like I said, doing pull-ups or doing dips or squatting their body weight or deadlifting 1.5 times their body weight, whatever it might be. And they're focusing on these small goals, and those small goals add up to the physique that they have now, even though what they're presenting now on their Instagram or their website or their channel might not necessarily be indicative of what got them there in the first place. And what I typically see is a lot of people will come to me or they'll reach out and they're like, hey, I saw X, Y, and Z person posted this workout. What do you think of this workout? And I'm like, that workout isn't part of any progression. It's a random workout that they're posting to get views and to get, their audience built up and get followers. It's not part of anything. And you'll see like the series that I've been doing with like my Instagram, where I'll
which
post
is
like,
fantastic, by the way. People need to, if you're listening, go check out Bryce Calvin.
Well, I'll post these like sample workouts of like, whatever body part focused workout. And I'll put in there, like, this is meant to be part of a progression. It's not meant to be a one-off workout. Don't just throw this workout in randomly and think that that's going to get you anywhere. It's not. So like whenever you're designing a program or you have a coach designing your program, they're doing it in a way that is meant to get you from wherever you are. Maybe you have, a lagging glutes. Maybe your glutes are a little bit small for your frame, or you want to bring up your glutes. Well, you're not going to bring up your glutes doing one workout. You know what I mean? That's not how these things go. You have to do that same workout and get better at that workout and force your body to adapt over the course of 8, 12, 52 weeks. It's not a 1 week type of thing. And that's one big thing that I've run into a lot is people just kind of assuming that whenever they see things on social media and they see things on Instagram, that's kind of the reality of it. And it's no. Social media and Instagram is a smokescreen.
Yeah.
They're letting you see what they want you to see. And that's the big thing there is you're seeing and you're digesting what they want you to digest because they want your money, they want your follows, they want all of those things. But what you didn't see is you didn't see what it took to get them there. And or you don't have the genetics that they have. So you might have to work harder than they do, or you have to be more optimal than they are.
I'm really glad you brought that up though.
Yeah, but that's a hard pill for some people to swallow. It's like, hey, can you make me look like X, Y, and Z person? And a lot, like I have a couple of clients that are females that look phenomenal, like fucking bomb. And I have a lot of women that will reach out to me, make me look like her. And I'm like, I can't give you her genetics. I wish I could have 100 women that look like her, but you don't have her mom and dad. You don't have her genetics. You don't have her work ethic. You know what I mean? And those are things that can't be taught. You can't teach someone to work harder. You know what I mean? Like you can't put that motivation, that drive in them. And same with anything in life. You can't do that with anything, with business or relationships or anything. So that's always a tough part to get through to some people where it's like, hey, you don't have their genetics, so you might have to work twice as hard as they do.
Well, and I know you've said this before too, Bryce, that when they get there, they'll never be satisfied. Like they'll be happy about where they look compared to when they started. But I always tell clients, like, we could go to a bodybuilding show, like with you, because I know you have some shows you're going to, check out the competitors. And the people that we bring from DLD Nation will be like, all right, what do you think? And they'll be like, oh my God, they look amazing. Like, I want to look like that person, et cetera, et cetera. You pull them off stage and you ask, hey, what do you think? Oh, well, this one little thing on my quad was off and like my
Yes.
ab didn't poke out how I wanted it to. Proving that that's not really the goal. Like, you may have a vision when you're starting out of what you want to look like. But again, like you said, Bryce, like genetics may play a role, work ethic, things that they did before getting into bodybuilding, whatever their sport was growing up will shape the body to a certain degree. But realizing that it's like you and I were joking about before we started recording, the journey,
Yeah.
and not so much that end goal, because the end goal they may not be so pleased with or as pleased as they think they will be.
Yeah, and one thing that that's always been interesting to me, where you can always see the final product, and the final product is always just captivating. It's awe-inspiring. So you see, these women or these men on stage, or you see them in a movie, or you see them on the beach at a photo shoot, whatever it might be, and you're like, man, I would love to look like that. I want to look like that. Make me look like that. And then you tell them, or you show them everything that it took for them to get to that point. It's like, okay, so this was a 20-week diet. Their cardio got up to, 60 minutes a day on whatever intensity it might be. They're doing 2 HIIT sessions a week. They're training 6 days a week. They're eating 100 grams of carbs a day. They're doing all of these different things. It's like, do you still want to do that? They're like, I don't know if I can do that. Like, exactly. And it's a frame shift. It's like, but you don't have to look at the absolute top tier, like the peak of physical performance and things like that, and be like, hey, I want that. Like, okay, well, I get that you might want that long term. That might be a goal for you down the line. But for now, let's focus on something that is more realistic for you. So instead of focusing on, hey, I want to look like, that model, or I want to be able to squat 300 pounds. Let's go ahead and start on dropping 10 pounds to like that be your goal for the next 3 months, is you're going to drop 10 pounds, and you're also going to squat 95 pounds for 10 reps. That can be your goal now. And then over the course of the next year, let's make that, 135 pounds for 10 reps. And you're going to drop, 15 pounds or 20 pounds from where you are now. And then over the course of the next 5 years, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe you'll be on stage. Maybe you'll look better than them.
Right.
But it's process oriented. You have to take it one step at a time. And if you don't actually come to enjoy the process, and at least be able to bear the process, like you have to understand what's going to go into it, and you have to be willing to accept that, then you're never going to get there. Because I think that me and you understand this, where you're not always going to enjoy having to eat the same stuff every day, or enjoy having to weigh your food and track your macros, or do your cardio, or go to the gym whenever you're tired. You're not always going to enjoy those things. But we understand that's part of the process, because we have a goal that is beyond what we want in that moment, or what our desires are, what our cravings are, or we're very tired that day. We'd rather sleep than go to the gym. But if you have goals that exceed those momentary things, you're like, okay, I know what I have to do to get to my goal.
Yep. It's the consistency piece. That's the goal.
It's the consistency piece. And a lot of times it's just doing what you don't necessarily want to do. Because if it was easy, everyone would be able to do it. I think that's like one of my all-time favorite quotes. Like, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And it goes about like that goes for literally everything. But especially fitness, and especially dieting. It's like, of course, everyone would want to look like, Miss Bikini Olympia, or, Scarlett Johansson, or whatever actress. Every woman wants to look like that, of course. But not everyone is able to do what they did to get to that point. Not everyone can make those sacrifices.
I like how you touched on that piece, as far as doing the things that you might not necessarily want to do. I know David Goggins, who we ran into at Jordan's bachelor party in Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
He preaches a lot about that, basically doing the things we don't want to do. It creates this armor around our brain. And so it's like me with leg days. Like I was joking, I skipped out on leg day to train with Chad because he was doing one of your workouts. And I want to work out with him. I fucking hate leg days, but I'll still do them, because I'm like, well, I want my legs to not be like skinny, and I want good proportions with my upper and lower body. But I know that doing this hard thing is going to build the mental toughness over time, and it's going to make everything seem easier. So now all of a sudden, chest day, back day, shoulder day, it's whatever, I can go in, it's fine. And then even like you said, outside of fitness, how many people listening may not be the happiest with their jobs, but they still wake up, they still get the job done because they need money to like put the roof over their head, or they have savings goals. We've seen people do that. It's wild though, when we go into fitness, all of a sudden people think it should be something different. I know we're getting close to how long you and I were going to chat. I
Yeah.
could go on all day about this and I appreciate it, but I did want to segue into a little bit of like you're my passion, and then again, shout you out. We had a
Cool.
fun like Ohio, Texas reunion back
Man.
in June. And so everyone's there having a good time. It's like everyone's at the Airbnb we rented, and people are like, all right, we need to throw on some music. And for whatever reason, like Bryce was put in charge of it. And they're like, all right, Bryce, put some music.
That's like the worst idea too.
Well, you look to me and you're like, Sean, what EDM would you recommend we play? And I was just like, oh my God. Cause you and I, we met at Jordan's bachelor party. Like obviously we're in a text group, but we didn't know each other that well. And so it was just like, I felt very flattered and humbled that you would ask me. And so I wanted to sort of kick things off. And like, I know you're into EDM, I know you're into festivals. We're sort of hamstrung in that regard right now because of COVID, but like, who are your favorite artists? What kind of EDM are you into?
Oh man. So like, I think everybody starts with like the more melodic stuff. So
They do. Yeah.
I actually have like, I've been to a million different festivals and concerts, like individual one-offs. And it's like, I have an Millennium tattoo on my arm. I have an Odessa tattoo behind my ear. So like everyone starts off with like that type of music, right? Like the melodic, the euphoric music. I think that the longer that you do it and the more festivals you go to, and the more like, I guess like hardcore, like raging you do, the more you get into, like the heavier stuff. So I would say now I'm more into like the real heavy EDM, where it almost is like blending the lines between like heavy metal, like head banging music. And the reason being is because like whenever you're at a festival, that is like the most fun, amped up, energy charged music you possibly listen to. And it's just so much fun. And like, I think we've talked about, like, I went to Lost Lands.
Yeah.
And like, if anybody doesn't know, Lost Lands is like a gigantic, just heavy bass festival that's in Ohio.
Yeah,
and,
just to give some more background before you go on, Bryce. It's put on by Excision, which are like the masters of very like hardcore EDM. I do agree with you too, as far as the genre blending, because a lot of our followers or people in Deal Nation will message me and they'll be like, yo, I was a big like Slipknot fan, or I'm a big Korn fan. I've never listened to EDM. I dove into your workout mix, and they're like, I'm sold. Like I'm now an EDM fan. So like Bryce was saying, Lost Lands put on by Excision, so you kind of know what to expect.
Yeah, and Excision is definitely one of the biggest ones for me. Like my opinions and thoughts are also really jaded by seeing them in concert too. So like whenever someone puts on a live show that just like blows your mind, it's like they're immediately one of your favorites. You're like, now every time I listen to them, I just think about like them live, and it was just awesome. So Excision is definitely one of my favorites. Like, I don't know if you listen to Subtronics much.
Yeah, of course.
So I've seen Subtronics like 6 times, and every single time it's just awesome. More recently, I've gotten into like really heavy stuff, like Murata. I don't know if you know who that is.
I haven't heard that name, but dude, I was literally about to pull my phone up to look at my playlist, because there's so many new people coming up that play the music we like. I've never heard of them.
Yeah, and a lot of it too is born from like SoundCloud, because all you need is a computer and you just need the software, and people can remix and like actually make music. And I know a lot of people that actually make music, and they just release it on SoundCloud. And like a lot of people, if they're good at it, they can get popular through just like releasing their own stuff on SoundCloud without even having a label, without even really knowing what they're doing. And then the next thing you know, they're at like a festival. But yeah, it just, I think, I'm trying to think of like what my favorite concert I've ever been to was. I'm not even sure. Like, do you know who Solomon King is?
Yeah, for sure.
So I love Solomon King too. Solomon King is more of like a metal EDM blend. I like Sudden Death a lot. Like it, dude. I'm like,
the harder, like Riot 10.
Yeah, I'm like into like the harder stuff too. But like I said, I just more so associate it with like that being there live at the show, and like that just insane energy that you get from a show that is just like nonstop, drop, like the whole crowd going crazy.
Yeah, the energy. Yeah, it's
energy,
a great stress relief.
Oh, dude, it's so much fun too. And like I always get a lot of people that they'll like listen to my playlist on SoundCloud, or like I'll post music on my Instagram or something like that. They're like, how do you listen to this? Like, it just sounds like sound. And I'm like, you'll never understand until you go to a festival. You'll never understand. Like the first time you go to a festival, I'm like, the first time you go to a festival with a bunch of friends and you just like immerse yourself in it, then your life will never be the same. Because then you're like, man, I love this music now. And not even because I necessarily like the sound of it, just because it makes me think of like how happy I was, how much fun I had. And you're like, I can listen to this shit all day.
Yeah. It takes you back to that moment. It's almost
For
like,
sure.
I joke with people, it's like Transformers noises. Like if you go back and watch
Yeah.
Transformers, they have those like robotic noises and then it's to a beat. I know you know Alice in Wonderland, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so this story will sort of like tie everything in a nice bow. But I saw her before Dayla and I met. A friend of mine was like, "Hey, you really dig like trap EDM. You should come see this chick." And so I hadn't ever heard of her. Bought tickets, went with my friends, loved it. She had said that the last time she was in Austin, it was like way before she was like who she is now. And she said the last time she was in Austin, she played for like 30 people, and we were in a venue that fit maybe 200 to 300. And so she was like, "I can't believe it," blah blah blah. And so then maybe 8 months later, she played again, and Dayla and I were dating. And I was like, hey, like, this is a great stress relief. It's a ton of fun. Why don't we go? And so we go to that thing. And of course, she's like getting bigger, getting bigger. But she said at the show, she asked the crowd, hey, do you guys want to hear my remix with whatever, whatever? And everyone's like, fuck yeah, rage, rage, rage. And she goes, I made this on my fucking laptop on a plane from London to New York. And she was like, if you want to do it, like if there's anything in your life you want to do, like fucking do it. Like there's no barriers to entry right now or anymore. Kind of like what you're saying about artists just getting on SoundCloud and like pushing music out. Same thing with people getting into the online coaching space. Like they can go on
Yeah.
Instagram, they can go on YouTube. But what ties it into a bow is she was named the Billboard like up and coming EDM artist of like 2018 or something. And she had been producing music for a decade.
Dude, that's fucking crazy. And now
Yeah.
she's like headlining EDC or like Tomorrowland and things like that. No, that is really crazy. And one thing that's actually interesting for me is whenever I was in college, college for me was like 2011, 2012. So I'm not too old. But
Thanks, Bryce.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
whenever I was in college, I was tinkering with EDM and starting to like listen to it a little bit. And I remember like I would listen to like Porter Robinson. I don't know if you know who Porter Robinson is.
Yeah. We saw him here at ACL or them. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So I remember listening to Porter whenever I was in college. I was like, man, I really like this. Like this just is like very euphoric music, and it just makes you feel happy. And I remember listening to that years ago. Fast forward to 2018, and I mean, I had been like work focused, I had been school focused, relationship focused. I was married at that point, and I had like the last thing I'd ever thought about was like going to concerts or any of that. And I had a friend group who was like, hey, there's a concert tonight. You should just come. And so me and my wife at the time, we were like, all right, let's do it. Like, let's just go. Like, screw it. Let's just go have fun. And I had no clue what was even going on. I was like, it'll just be like a small show. And it's a giant, like,
You
indoor
like need a
festival.
camelback. You're like, oh, I
Oh, man,
fucked
yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah, for sure. There are thousands of people there, and like now I know it's a really big festival that happens in Columbus, or they do it all over the place. But one of the locations is in Columbus, and I had no clue what I was walking into. But the headliners that night were like Alan Walker, Chami, and Porter Robinson.
That's a
Yeah,
lineup. Those three
yeah, yeah,
alone.
yeah. And I was like, man, I know who Porter Robinson is. I think I've like heard this guy back in the day. And I remember that night, like he came on, he played his set, and I was like, okay, that was one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. We should probably do this more often. And
Yeah.
then it was like, you know how sometimes you go to festivals and like you'll hear like a set or you'll hear a song, and for like next week you got to listen to that artist, you have to listen to that song until it's like out of your head. Dude, it was like that for me after that concert night, and I'm like, man, I think I really like EDM. And I was like, like I don't know where this is coming from. I think I really like it. And then, like I said, I just kind of eased into like I was Porter, and then kind of like the Alice in Wonderland and more of that stuff. And then as it kind of went on, I was like, all right, now I really like the heavier dubstep, and I like the real heavy stuff. So now, yeah, like now for me, I'm just like I'm for sure at like Lost Lands or Bass Canyon, things like that. Like that's gonna be my sets for sure.
Well, when they open back up, when they open festivals back up, I know we're all going to get together and rage face. I know I got to go here in a little bit. So
Yeah,
I'm going
I
to
know we've
wrap
been
it up.
on
But
we've been on forever.
dude, I appreciate this. Also, people listening, Bryce and I just talked for like 30 minutes before we hit record, and we were like, oh shit, like we should probably do this. Like I know he's a busy guy. I know what my schedule's like. But to wrap things up, Bryce, where can people find you? Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, so I recently just did a pretty extensive rebranding of my business. For a while, I've had my business name, which is Progressive Performance. I've been like really low key about it for a long time, and then more recently, I've been like, I should probably start pushing this. So that's where I have all of my stuff. Is my business name is called Progressive Performance. You can reach me really easily through Instagram. If you're ever interested in working with me, I have an application to work with me on my Instagram bio. Actually, in the works of just going ahead and starting a business page for my business, a business Instagram page. Start funneling a lot of things through there. Hopefully, start posting a lot of good content, good educational stuff there, and then in the future, potentially do a little bit more stuff. But for now, the easiest way is for sure through Instagram, because I'm on IG all day because my business is basically run through IG. So I'm always on there. If you're ever interested in like asking me a question or DMing me or working with me, that's probably the best way to do it for now.
Awesome.
And that's Bryce Calvin 23. Sorry, Bryce Calvin
Thank
23.
you. You took the words out of my mouth. Also, shameless plug, Bryce is working with Dayla and Chad in the Next Level Coaching Academy, NLCA. So you're going to be noticing, Bryce, like I've seen you, bro. I've seen you evolve with what you're putting out there. I talked to Dayla and she's like, Bryce really cares. He's putting a lot into it. And so if you're listening to this and you're just hearing about Bryce now, you definitely want to follow him, get into it, because and no shit, I'm not bullshitting. You put out a lot of great content. The stuff that you're putting out now, as far as the workouts, is fantastic. You got a lot of good people hiring you. So sky's the limit, brother.
That's nice. It's been a good past couple months for sure. And, Chad, Dayla definitely helped me a lot. So shout out to them. And, hopefully their workouts reflected a little bit. I go easy on them since they helped me. I don't fuck their lives up too much, but no. But no, yeah, I appreciate it, man. And like I said, this business is it's interesting one, man. Being in the online fitness space is an interesting business, especially whenever, like for myself, I feel a little bit more reserved. I can kind of do my own thing, but definitely been pushing myself outside of my comfort zone lately with the branding and then also the content I've been putting out. But it's been good. It's been good. It's been fun. It's been well received, which is nice. And we'll see what happens in the future. I look forward to continuing to do it.
Yeah, man. I love how you touched on too, getting out of your comfort zone. And that's where growth happens. Like it doesn't need to be like obviously in the gym for those listening, but even your favorite Fitspos, like if they're doing it correctly, like Bryce, they're trying to look for ways to get out of their comfort zone, not only in the gym, but in what they're doing with their business as well.
For sure.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate the time, Bryce.
Yeah, man. Of course. Anytime.
Thanks, y'all. This has been another episode of Shots to the Dome.